Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Your house is on fire. Your house is on fire. You're not going to get a telegram. You're not going to get a bell alarm going off, and firemen are not going to arrive at your house. This is figuratively a phrase I'm using to tell you that it is a time period in history right now where those alarm bells should be going off in your head that your house is on fire, as it has throughout the ages for the Jewish people when they get too comfortably embedded in their host countries, or not even, but when it's time to leave, when that train is coming to the station, you've got to get on that train. You don't want to miss the Aliyah train. I'm going to be talking to you today about Aliyah. I'm going to be giving you some Aliyah inspiration, telling you how nice and wonderful your life can be here, even better than where you're living now outside of Israel, how it's going to be better for your children and your future generations, and you will be the superstar. And I'm also going to, sound the alarm bells and tell you why there's no future for you outside of the land of Israel. I'm going to read to you an alarmist letter I received from one of our listeners, Frank, in the Netherlands. And I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit from an article in the Jerusalem Post, which is talking about all of the tens of thousands of people that they are expecting to make Aliyah to Israel this year. And I'm going to be giving you also some information and suggestions on how you can best make your footprint here in Israel. In other words, finding yourself a home, getting settled in, getting your roots sunk down in here, and getting your family and your future generations settled into our homeland. This is a live show. If you want to call in and comment, you agree, disagree, or you have a question, I'm happy to speak with you. Our numbers are on our homepage at israelnewstalkradio.com at the top of the page. Feel free to call in. We are live if you're listening on Sunday afternoon, 4 to 5 p.m. Holy Time. We'll be right back.
G'day, I'm Jono Vandor.
And I'm Ross Nichols.
Join us on our program, Israel on My Mind, a show that broadcasts all the weekly goodness that flows like milk and honey from the Holy Land straight into your ears with humorous and happy news stories.
New shows are posted every Thursday at 7 p.m. Israel time, highlighting the lighter side and advancing a positive view of Israel here on Israel News Talk Radio.
Well, if you haven't noticed it yet, if you have not been looking at the news, or you've been looking at the news and thinking, well, so far so good. It's like the guy who jumps out of a 100-story building and he's falling. He's on the 60th floor. He's saying, so far so good. On the 50th floor, so far so good. On the 40th floor, so far so good. Your house is on fire, my Jewish brothers and sisters. You know, people think that they've got their finger on the pulse of the news. And when it gets bad, don't worry, we're going to be on the first plane out. Do you know how many times I've heard that from people? Except what happens when there are no planes out? Like a pandemic and the skies are closed. Even if it's not closed in the United States where you might be living, or in Australia or someplace else, maybe in Israel the skies are closed. And guess what? The skies are closed now in Israel. They are not letting in to Israel non-citizens. I have friends who her husband is Israeli. He's an American, but he's an Israeli citizen. She's American. And her children are Israeli citizens. One of them is even serving in the IDF, and another one is just had a baby here in Israel. She wanted to come to visit them and help her daughter out, and she cannot come. Even if she stays the prerequisite 2 weeks in how do you say bidud? In quarantine. Thank you, Mr. Technician. In quarantine, because she is not a citizen. Her husband is a citizen. Her children are citizens. Her kids are living here in Israel, and she can't get to them because she's not an Israeli citizen. So now she's trying to hurry up and get her citizenship. She's trying to make aliyah so she's an official citizen and she can come and go when she's able to. And when I say she's able to, I mean also when the conditions are allowing her to be able to come. Sometimes in history, there is a window of opportunity, or I should say actually all the time in history, there's a window of opportunity. And many times a lot of us think, well, not yet. I'm not ready. Not yet. I'm not ready. I don't have a job, or the kids are too old, or the kids are too young, or I'm not retired yet, or I'm already retired, so I'll just be buried there, or whatever reasons they want to pull out of a hat. And some of them may be compelling reasons. Some of them may be even really good reasons why they can't come now. But history waits for no one. In World War II, people also had their reasons why they weren't leaving. I have another year of university and then I get my doctorate. The kids are too young. The kids are too old. My parents are too old. I can't leave, whatever the reason was. And they stayed and they perished. Their homes burnt down. Their communities no more. History does not wait for when things are fitting your schedule. And this is why I am trying to warn you that your house is on fire already now and you've got to get out. Now, a lot of people are going to say, Tamar, you are being an alarmist. But I am just ringing the bell. If that makes me an alarmist, then so be it. I am ringing the bell because you are not going to get a telegram from God saying, Mr. and Mrs. Shapiro, or Mr. and Mrs. Goldstein, or Mr. and Mrs. Cohen, the time to get out is now. You have until, I'm just going to throw out a date, August 15th, 2020 to get out. Or November. Oh, that's good. Let's talk about November. A lot of people are thinking, well, you know, with all that's happening now, people are seeing that the left is crazy in America and Trump is going to win by a landslide. But I want to tell you that even if Trump should win, even if he should win in these upcoming elections, number one, he's going to be out in 4 more years. Then what? Then you're probably going to get somebody from the Democratic Party in. And I believe, this is my belief, I could be wrong, and feel free to call in and disagree with me. I am a very tolerant person. I can listen to other people's opinions, not like people, sadly, on the left who you have to toe their politically correct line. You cannot say that when someone says Black Lives Matter, you cannot reply with all lives matter, which is a Jewish value, which is a value for many people around the world, whether you're Jewish or not. If you say that, you will be termed a racist, a hateful person, a spiteful person, whatever it is that they want to call you. And you will be shunned. You will be put in fear to even talk again. Try posting that on your social media and see what happens. I imagine that if Trump were to win, that the left is not going to take it lying down. Let me just read you a few lines if I can. Let me skim through this. This article I saw on Yahoo News the other day. Just the other day, I wanted to save it for you. It says, Trump has a plan to stay in the White House if he loses the election, former senator says. They're saying that he has a plan to basically not respect what the elections would, what the election results would be. That he's not willing to move from the White House. Now, whether this is true or not is irrelevant. I don't think it's true. But if he wins, I imagine that the left is going to yell and scream that he tampered with the votes, that he didn't allow mail-in votes. They're already saying in this article that they're thinking that Trump is going to make it. Here, let me just read it to you. It says here, Mr. Trump will attempt to retain power through voter suppression. They say here that one of the strategies is to suppress voter turnout by purging voters, especially inner city voters, from registration rolls and to suppress mail-in voting. He also believes physical polling stations will be limited, especially in urban areas, in an effort to create long lines on Election Day and discourage voting. Now, folks, this doesn't have to be true. This could just be things that the left is going to throw out there and then have an excuse in their eyes to start burning down more businesses, more companies, more homes, more neighborhoods. And already, if they're starting to defund police departments, who's going to be there to protect you? If businesses that were paying taxes to the city, and then the city lets them get burnt down because they want to have their summer of love, as we say in Hebrew, kol sheken, all the more so, they are not going to be protecting you in your home. You also pay taxes, but probably not as much as these big businesses in the major downtown areas. And if the police aren't coming to protect those places, you are on your own, just as this family that we saw with a machine gun and a pistol. The husband and wife came out of their home, what was her name, McCloskey or something like that? I don't remember. To protect themselves because the police were not showing up. And guess who gets arrested? Guess who gets threats? They do. Not the mobs that broke down a wrought iron gate to get into their community. And Jews who mostly do not own weapons to protect themselves, what are you going to do? It's time to come home. God is not going to send you a telegram telling you it's time. Just open the newspaper. Open the news. Look at the social media. Look at the headlines. You don't even have to read into the headlines. And why would you want to stay in a society where you have one of the most popular political parties today, Black Lives Matter, that wants to destroy the nuclear family? Is that the type of society that you want to raise your children and grandchildren in? Or do you want to come to Israel, your home, where you can be a proud Jew and you can raise your children to be Jews and they have a future here? Look at Israel today, this tiny little country the size of New Jersey, which I believe is going to be the next superpower. Israel that comes out with the most amazing scientific discoveries in water desalination, in science, in medicine, in agriculture, in high tech. It's all happening here. It's vibrant here. And guess what? Israelis are happy here. We're going to be right back. You can call in, you can agree, disagree, and I'm going to be talking to you more about what to do with your finances. In my opinion, the best thing to do to make yourselves more money. We'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrea Simento from Jerusalem, inviting you to drop everything and join me on my show, Pull Up a Chair. We'll visit this week's quirky stories, meet fabulous guests, and discover my Israel. Together, we'll laugh, shout, and explain the topics that make us say, hey, we've got to talk about that. So get comfortable and pull up a chair with me, Andrea Simento, every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
Hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson,
And me, William Hall,
on the Science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, and I just want to let you know also, we are talking about here Aliyah and how if you're living still in the diaspora, history doesn't wait for anyone. And you're not going to get a telegram from God saying that it's time to come home. Just open your eyes and realize, I was talking in the last segment about even if Trump gets reelected, at most, you have 4 more years to get out, but I don't think it's going to last that long. Consider this, my friends. America and the Western countries that you are living in, or anywhere in the world outside of Israel, are going through a financial crisis with the coronavirus. People have lost their businesses. They have lost their fortunes in many cases. They have lost their businesses. They're angry. Their pocketbooks hurt. And there are more people trying to burn down even more businesses and weaken these democratic countries because they have their own agendas. What's going to happen if, and I'm not making this up because it's already happened in South Africa, where the government will say, you want to leave the country? You want to move out of the country to somewhere else? Okay. But guess what? You made your money here in this country, and so your money is going to stay in this country. There is a famous song about diamonds in your shoes. And I understand that is from the idea that people who are unable to take their money out of the country of South Africa would buy diamonds and then put them in the heels of their shoes and wear it out of the country and then cash in their diamonds when they got out and try to make back as much money as they could. Because, you're always going to buy diamonds more from what you can sell it. In fact, if you go to a place in Israel called Ashkelon, there's a neighborhood there called Afridar, which comes from the word Africa, because there are a lot of South African Jews who took their money out of the country and made a new life, built their homes in Ashkelon. They built their nice little villas. It's a beautiful place, by the way. If you can afford to live there today, you're very fortunate. But what's going to happen if you wait too long and you do not leave? And by chance, they might say, we're hurting, the economy is hurting, and we are not going to let people take their money out of the banks here or sell what they have and transfer it out of the country. You made your money here, your money stays here. What are you going to do? How are you going to be able to take all of your life savings, sell your house, your car, whatever it is that God has blessed you with, and transfer that money here to Israel? Because you've waited too long. Now is the time to sell and divest and invest in the Holy Land, where the future is, not just for the Jewish people, but for the world. As I said, I believe that Israel is going to be the next superpower. Now, you can call in, you can agree, you can disagree. You can be all the excuses you want why you cannot make Aliyah. But again, when we go back to what we saw just recently in the last 100 years with World War II, and how Jews had many reasons not to leave as well. My grandfather didn't leave. He had a factory there. He worked all of his life for his factory. He had a material factory in Lodz, Poland, or Łódź, as they say in Polish. And what, he was going to leave it all and start all over again? That was a good excuse. The war will be over in 6 months. The Americans will come in. The Allies will come in. They'll get the Nazis out. 6 months it'll be over, and I'm going to trade everything in for that. And he stayed. And he was murdered by the Nazis. And my father and his mother, who survived, and my uncle, they survived, but they survived broken. And the rest of the family was all murdered, went up the chimneys. Now, there are many good reasons, as I said, but nothing is going to stop that train that is stopping at your station, and you have to make that window in history to get on. All right, let's go to a caller. We have Alan joining us from New Jersey. Hi there, Alan.
Hi there. My friend and I were listening to your great program, and I thought that it's good to say my comments about three things that were on my mind. And if it's possible at the end, my friend wants to talk about annexation. So what I want to say is about three things in America that our news is talking about right now. At the first, that is important to me to say that it's a shame that many Americans have to wait in line for hours to get free food and endure hunger. Another issue is that the killing of blacks and racial discrimination in our country is very humiliating, and serious action must be taken against police violence. And the third issue is the destruction of racist statues.
The destruction of what? I didn't understand.
All symbols of racism should be eliminated. So these are really important, and we must take serious action to solve them. I was in an interview with Professor Gerald Ford, a black human rights activist and professor of Houston University, and he was saying that it is a shame for our country, America, the greatest country in the world, to have such issues. So if it's possible, my friend wants to say his comment to, is it all right?
Yes, we are live, but if you have a question, I can answer it for you.
Okay, sure. It's about annexation. I will pass the phone to.
Hi, what's your name?
Hello?
Yes, what's your name?
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
I'm Mark, and
okay.
I'm calling you with Alan. Always listen to your great program, and it's really great. I really appreciate it. My question is about annexation. I wanted to ask you that if America has so many problems right now with, the protests, with all this racial matters, with all this news, with all these statues being removed, how is America to help Israel about annexation with Palestine?
I don't understand it. Wait, stop. Mike, take him down for a minute.
Why should we...
Mike, I need you to listen to me, because if I don't understand you, I cannot answer your question. You're asking me about what about annexation when America is going through such turmoil right now? Just give me a yes or no answer. Mike, is that your question?
No one wants us to help it. It's all about their filthy money. It's all about money that we are supporting. Our governments are corrupt. They are corrupted with your money. And I don't want this to continue, I don't want this to continue, this relation with Israel and American governments, this corrupted government.
Mike, are you Jewish?
Right. It's not
Mike, are you
right.
Jewish? Okay, all right. So I don't know if this was a troll call or not, but I want to say here, it's interesting. They brought up the idea of annexation. First of all, I have to correct him, and the term that he used is not annexation. This is our biblical homeland and legal homeland. And the Jewish people are just applying sovereignty in our land. That's all it is. And I find it very interesting, by the way, that this is happening at this time, just in time for, hopefully, a large influx of Jews. I just think God works in mysterious ways and in wonderful ways. But that's all I'll talk about now. I didn't quite understand their question, but in any case, I want to continue here. Another article that just came in while the show was on, and that is from the Yeshiva World, and it says here, de Blasio's New York City, here. Bullet fired into New York Police Department vehicle. Gun pointed at cops. Fireworks thrown into police car. Now, if this is happening, my friends, against armed policemen, all the more so this boldness that these thugs have is going to certainly go against anybody that they want to go against who is living in a nice home in America or Australia or anywhere else, who is not armed and who are not the police, because we know the police take care of themselves. You heard a policeman, the whole department is going to be behind him. And they're really going to put down the law because they want to stop this and nip it in the bud. But if they hit your house, your business, your kid's school, what are you going to do? The police can't respond to everything. You cannot rely on law and order anymore in a place where there is no law and order anymore. And that's the way these thugs want to make it. They want to make it that there is no law and order so they can take over the streets. And you don't need a majority of a population to take over, by the way. You just need enough that are armed and that are going to not be afraid and are going to be coming down your street in a pickup truck or some type of vehicle with their brandishing their arms and taking over. Or where you wake up one day like they did in Seattle, Washington, and all of a sudden 6 city blocks are fenced in and you happen to be inside of this zone. What are you going to do? Why wait, God forbid, until that happens? When we get back, I have more to tell you. I just don't have enough airtime. What am I going to do?
Leap of Faith with Penina Taylor.
We live in the age of information, but not inspiration. If you're like me, you're looking to be inspired to reach higher, to connect more, and to grow. Well, if you want to get warm, you need to stand close to the fire. And if you want to catch fire, you need to stand close enough to get hit by the sparks. Join me, Penina Taylor, as we walk with people who have embarked on a spiritual journey towards Torah. We'll uncover what started them on their journey and what truths they discovered along the way. So prepare to be inspired as we take a leap of faith every Sunday at 5 p.m. on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, so I got an email from a listener in the Netherlands. And he writes me, "Hi, Tamar. While the USA is torn apart by Black Lives Matter," I would add there, and Antifa, "here in Holland, something different is going on. Believe it or not, But the Netherlands we know of is no more. Under cover of Corona, the government deleted all civil rights. Only in a few months' time, we have seen it become from a democracy to a very violent, oppressive police state. Under the new laws, police can drag you out of your house at will. No warrant needed. And they do. They even used the army yesterday to put off protests. We are in turmoil. On the footage you see, no hooligans. That's what's in the papers. By the way, he sent me a video of what was going on with the police pulling people. It looked like a kidnapping, really. He says here, most elderly people who protest this policy, they beat up mercilessly. It is forbidden to speak out on the street that you disagree. When the police spot you, you are gone. If there is any Jew left in Holland, call them to get out, Tamar. My wife and I are counting the days we still sleep in our own beds. By the way, this listener is not Jewish. He says here, by the way, they threatened to close the only Orthodox Jewish school in Holland because after repeated warnings from the education ministry, this Jewish school refuses to teach the pupils diversity. I want to stop here for a moment. Just ask all of the Jews who live around the world, if you're sending your children to school and you want them to learn Jewish values and not what the left is pushing in on our kids, what are you going to do when the government wants to close you down because you are not teaching diversity? Now, it may take many steps until it gets to that point, but what are you waiting for? He says here, and it continues, and the government stops all finances regarding security of Jewish institutions around the country. This was written about on Arutz Sheva, he says, on IsraelNationalNews.com. When you read headlines like this, when you hear about these things going on, do you just bury it, close your eyes and say, well, it hasn't happened here yet? Like the guy who jumps from a 100-story building and gets to the 50th floor and says, so far, so good? What are you waiting for? The earlier you leave, I believe, the more money you will get from your house, if you have a house to sell, and the things you have to sell while people still have some money to buy things. The economy could really crash with the corona and with everything else that's happening. People are losing their businesses. They don't have money to buy things. So what do? You're going to wait until it gets to this point where you can only sell your house for bupkas? And if you have savings in the bank, I want to tell you this before my time is up on the show today. I urge you, even if you're not yet ready to pick up and move home to Israel, that you buy property here. Let us say, for instance, that you happen to have a few $100,000 in savings in whatever type of accounts or folders or portfolios that you have. You have it in there. How much is your bank paying you on interest every month? Let's say you've got $300,000 or $250,000. How much is your bank paying you every month on that money that they're holding for you? Now, what if you took that money and you bought yourself a little apartment in Israel and you rented it out? Now you would be making on that apartment that you purchased every month, let's say, I'll give you a roundabout figure, let's say $1,000 a month. Is your bank paying you $1,000 a month to hold your $250,000 or $300,000 or whatever it is? I imagine not. So what do you think would be the smart thing to do? Now, I am not a financial expert. It just seems common sense to me. I am a big believer in owning property because if you have dollars or whatever fiat currency you have, it is not backed by gold or silver like it once was. There is no such thing anymore as a gold dollar or a silver dollar. It is only paper today. And if something should happen, something big, and all of a sudden the worth of the dollar goes down, you could lose your life savings, God forbid. Or it would be devalued so much, your $250,000 that you have saved up, or whatever sum of money you have saved up, will now be worth only a quarter of what it was before. Because with paper, with nothing backing it up, if one country, if China decides or another country decides we're not going to use the dollar for international trade anymore, or for purchasing oil, or for whatever it is, it's going to hurt the dollar and all of your life savings, God forbid, down the tubes. However, if you took the money and you were smart, I believe if you were smart, and you should ask your own financial advisor, preferably one here in Israel, if you should take your money and purchase a property here and then rent it out, even if it's not your dream house. It doesn't have to be your dream house. It just has to be a property that will have a good resale value, that when you do come in another few years or several months and you come here and you realize, wow, after being here for a year, I found my dream house. It's this beautiful little villa on the hilltops of Tiberia, overlooking the Sea of Galilee. We love it. It's a good price. We can afford it. If we sell that apartment that we just bought, well, then you can sell that apartment that you first bought and then buy your dream house. But in the meantime, A, you have income coming in every month that the bank is not paying you. And B, you have a physical property in your hands that if, God forbid, the dollar goes bust or loses its value, you still have something. And not only do you have something, but every year, if you look at the past, your property is going up in value. Much faster, I believe, than the dollar is. So it would seem to me common sense that the right thing to do now would be to purchase property in Israel. And if you're not Jewish and you're worried about your money, it might be a good idea also to speak with your financial advisor and purchase some property in a part of the United States that you believe is more stable, less likely to be attacked or influenced by these anarchists and communists, and has people that are going to be paying their rents in a more stable place in the country. That might be a good thing for you to do. I only have another minute or two left. There's so much I want to say about making Aliyah. But remember that history waits for no one. You may have kids that you're saying, well, he's almost done with high school. He's almost done with university. Or I know I have grandkids there, but, I don't want to leave my grandkids, or whatever it is. The same excuses happened in Europe during World War II, and it didn't matter. Those who got out saved their lives. Those who stayed mostly perished. You do not want to perish. Better to have a harder time moving. It's difficult to move, I'm not going to lie to you. And you're moving to another country, but it's your home. And let me tell you that even if you have grandkids that you want to see, by you coming here and moving here, you will be the anchor. You will be the anchor that will make it easier for your children and your grandchildren to come here, because they already have Saba and Savta, grandpa and grandma here. You're already that anchor for them. And if you're younger and your parents aren't ready to move yet, it will give them the incentive to see you and their grandkids, your children, by you already coming here and establishing a home here, whether you're renting or not, whether you rent or buy, and eventually, God willing, you will buy. It just takes time. Everything takes time. Sometimes we can't immediately buy something, but you come, you save your lives because your house is on fire. That is my opinion. That is what I am seeing in the headlines. And anybody who has open eyes can see that even if Trump wins, it is eventually going to go with this flood of illegal immigrants that are coming in with the no following the rules by the left. They cheat. They don't follow the rules. And they are willing to be violent and get their way. I don't see a good future for the wonderful United States of America, which we all love. Better to help America by being here and go back in the summers and go on shopping sprees if you want, if you're still able to. But come here while the skies are still open, because you can make Aliyah. There are special flights for that. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to write me, Tamar at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Thanks for being with us.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
If you're hearing this message, everyone else can too. Advertise with Israel News Talk Radio and get your message out to people. We'll build a personalized package for you. Contact advertising at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey, this is Jake in Anchorage, Alaska, and I love listening to all the super interesting interviews and up-to-date information on what's happening in Israel.
Hello, this is Anna King, originally from London, now living in Israel. And what can I say? Israel News Talk Radio is my cup of tea.
My name is Bhaskar. I'm from India, and I love listening because you get to know the truth and wonderful voices from this lovely country.
Mom! Okay, wait a minute. Hi, this is Chava Dax, and I'm calling for the rolling hills of Ma'ale Adumim, just north of Jerusalem. I always listen to Israel News Talk Radio to get all the latest news and commentary and to keep me up to date every day.
This is Sarah Dax from Ma'ale Adumim, and I'm 12. I wish Israel News Talk Radio was boring so my mom wouldn't listen to it all the time. Mom!
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.